So it's useful to take a step back and kind of realize how the Cardano project got started and the aspirations of it and kind of the structure of the project. So we look at Cardano kind of like a DARPA project. So if you look at a lot of the great things we have, like the internet and Siri, they actually started as DARPA projects. Like Siri started as a project called CALO, Cognitive Assistant that Learns and Organizes. And basically the idea is that you want to have the freedom to go and do high-risk, high-return research to try to go after a really big goal. And actually we had three collections of big goals. One, we wanted to create truly scalable protocols. Two, we wanted to really understand the science of interoperability and figure out how to get blockchains to talk to each other. And three, we wanted to figure out a better way, a more sustainable way of governing these systems, so that who pays and who decides side of the space, so that we don't have the Ethereum classics and the Bitcoin cashes and the Bitcoin cashes fee and the Bitcoin cash gold and whatever the latest flavor is. So the first step was to build a big collection of academics. So we brought a lot of scientists together and we wrote a lot of papers. We wrote over 40 papers so far. More than 20 have gone through peer review at major conferences like Eurocrypt, Crypto, CCS, NDSS, and so forth. And then to translate that research into actual code, a production system. So when you go from aspirational to actually execution, it's always an inexact science. And you have exactly you have deadlines and schedules, and really you can break it down into kind of a collection of 5 things that we need to accomplish. One is we need to decentralize the system and fully roll out what we've done with the Ouroboros. 2, we need to introduce smart contracts to the system. 3, we need to get all the interoperability protocols that we've designed into the ledger. 4, we need to have a scalability protocols put in. And then finally, we need to have the governance protocols put in. So our hope was to get decentralization done last year. We just didn't get there. We tried really hard, but we had a lot of regressions, and we had parallel teams working, and some of the teams weren't working out, so we had to consolidate, and we had to pivot on a few things. And so that's okay, that's inevitable, and it delayed us by about a year. But we're speeding up, and we're now in a position where at the end of this month we're going to launch the Shelley testnet, and we're also going to launch the first major Shelley update, which is Ouroboros BFT, to the mainnet. So these 2 things basically form the backbone of the systematic step-by-step strategy to get decentralization out. So what's going to happen is that the testnet will allow us to accumulate lots of stake pools, and then what we can do is roll over that testnet into the mainnet and then flip a switch. And then what happens is epoch by epoch, so every 5 days, the system gets gradually more decentralized. And then you wake up a few months later and then 100% of the system is being run by stake pools instead of by IOHK or Mergo CF consensus delegates.
So gradual decentralization by running those stake
exactly,
pools.
and because then you can look at metrics to decentralize. So what you can do is say, hey, if all the blocks are being made by the stake pools and the network quality is right and the chain quality is right, then continue decentralizing. If for whatever reason they're not running the protocol, then regress back to the Ouroboros BFT. So you have like a backflow. You can go in one direction or the other. People doing the job, the system's operating, the protocol looks correct, then the protocol becomes fully decentralized. If there's some flaw and things aren't working right, then you go back to a safe operating state. Exactly, and I think it's a very sensible way of gradually introducing decentralization to a system, because it's not immediate, but it's not like a 5-year thing. It's something that can be accomplished in weeks to months, and you can see constant progress every 5 days towards that end goal. And also it's egalitarian because it gives people time to learn how to run stake pools, to advertise, to build up that ecosystem, especially since we want to have 1,000 stake pools. That's our goal. So that's going on. In parallel, we have a whole team working on Plutus, and that team is scaled from just 2 people to almost 10 people, and it has some of the world's top academics on it. We have Phil Wadler, one of the creators of Haskell, Bill Chakravarty, who's the creator of Template Haskell and all these other ideas. He's just brilliant people on this team, and we've gone from just some concepts to actually a full end-to-end smart contract model that reconciles off-chain and on-chain code, and we also have a way of deploying to Node and a way of deploying to the browser and other things in that software stack. So that took a lot of time to materialize, but now we know how to do it. We had a big event in December of last year at University of Edinburgh where we showed all of the soft engineers in the academic community. We called this Plutus Fest, and a lot of good content was created out of that. And basically now we've gotten to the point where we're starting to move from a mock chain, so a pretend blockchain, to actually rolling this into a testnet. So some later version of the Shelley testnet will integrate the extended Plutus in, and then suddenly smart contracts will be introduced. But
so that's not smart contracts.
Yeah, and so decentralization is much more complicated and involved and risky than the introduction of smart contracts, the model we have. So I'm optimistic that smart contracts will come in faster than it's taken historically to do than to do decentralization. And that's okay. So those two are our major goals for this year. And then we have another team working on interoperability. And basically that's integrating our NEPA PALs and proof of stake work that we've done into Cardano. And then also open questions about which interoperability protocols to support. So there's protocols like Aeon, Interledger, Lightning. And by integrating these things, it allows us to talk to other systems. So we have to do a cost benefit and decide pragmatically which ones we feel are the best protocols to bet on. The point of interoperability is so that your blockchain is not blind, deaf, and dumb. It's actually capable of understanding the world around it, and you can inject state information, data feeds, you can inject value into the system from foreign chains without necessarily possessing the entire blockchain of the other system. So that's underway. We have Dionysius Zindros as the person leading that. We've published a whole family of papers. And what's nice is Zindros used to work for Google before he became a graduate student. He's an engineer by training originally. Mm-hmm. So everything he does is usually built from a lens of implementability as opposed to hard science where we then have to bring in engineers and make the protocol pragmatic. So that's actually surprisingly far along. I thought it would take a little bit longer. In terms of scalability, Ouroboros as a collection of protocols on the single thread side is nearly done. We have 2 more papers that we're going to write, and there's some refinements to the Genesis paper we're pushing out probably this week or next. And basically that's Ouroboros Chronos, and then some enhancements to Ouroboros to increase its resistance against temporary periods of dishonest majority. Once those things are done, Ouroboros is at this point a finished product, meaning that you could run forever a Bitcoin-style system or an Ethereum-style system with it at a reasonable TPS, somewhere in the 100 to 200 TPS range. And if that's your cup of tea, the system will run indefinitely. So the next step is to shard it, and we've already begun our sharding research. We published a paper called Parallel Chains. Matthias Fitzi out of Switzerland did that. And there's a whole family of papers that we're going to start writing along that line, and then it'll accumulate to a final protocol we call Ouroboros Hydra, which is basically taking this epic design and running them in parallel with each other. So you can run epic A, B, C, D, and then just shard the transactions among them. And so you can go from one thread to multi-threads, and the system runs pretty quickly. Those papers will start being pushed to market for peer review towards the second half of this year. And then we anticipate implementing them in the first half of 2020 after we've gotten done with decentralization, smart contracts, and interoperability. There really isn't a need to go beyond, I'd say, 100 to 200 transactions per second in 2019. We're probably not going to have that kind of adoption. I mean, that would basically be saying that there's really not a need to go beyond 100 or 200 transactions per second for 2019. I mean, that would basically be saying that we have more transaction volume than Ethereum and Bitcoin combined. So it's probably not going to happen in 2019. But we do need to get to that, a higher rate, like 3,000 to 5,000 TPS, to be comparable with Visa scale networks and these things. And so Hydra will get us there. So we've made some great progress there, and it's really exciting to see how clean and concise and well understood the science of our protocols are becoming. We went from very technical, super dense mathematical papers to getting shorter, more concise, more elegant papers along the way, which is telling you that the science is getting where it needs to go. Simplicity is the ultimate elegance. It's very hard to achieve with protocols. Like the Ouroboros BFT paper, the entire protocol is like this big. It's one page, and so that's just great. And it's just as secure as all the things we've done before. So we're pretty happy there.
Yes. That's amazing, by the way. So I just need to clarify a few things. So I have here the geographics. You said that the vision is to be financial stack of the developing world. So you said Africa, Caribbean, South America, and
Southeast Asia.
Yeah, that I don't have here.
Like Vietnam.
I probably even mentioned them, but we can add it. So you're still on the same page. You're still looking to develop.
Not only that, we've made great progress along those lines. Yeah, we have an office in Addis Ababa, right in Ethiopia. We've just finished a class where we're training. We retrained 23 women to be Haskell developers, 19 from Ethiopia, 4 from Uganda. In fact, Josh will show you a picture after the interview. I'm actually going to Ethiopia after Hong Kong to graduate the course and meet with ministry. So we're getting pilots, and we're really starting to push enterprise blockchain into Africa, and we view enterprise blockchain as an on-ramp for adoption into Cardano. So we have a great strategy to have representation in 25 countries in Africa by the end of this year, and all 52 countries by the end of 2020. That's being led by a great African operations, Sean O'Connor. And basically the name of the game is there, show up, train a bunch of people, and then get some pilots and go do something in agriculture or business registration or property registration, and that gives you real products serving real use to people. And then the output of that are digital identities, wallets, addresses that are interoperable with Cardano. So then we can use Cardano for lending and insurance. So that vision hasn't changed.
But here they gave me the quote, like you said, specifically financial systems. Are you still thinking in this direction?
Yeah, because if you look at Africa or any of these other economies, they really don't have great financial systems. It's one of the reasons why people are so poor. Poverty doesn't come because people are stupid or because people are lazy. Poverty comes usually because of bad systems. And if you look at the systems that are right now in Africa, a lot of them are leftovers from a different time, and they're not competitive in the global modern economy. There's a huge international pressure for these economies to modernize, meaning they can do compliance, they have digital identities, they have digital money, they can actually transact anywhere in the country. So we're investing heavily in infrastructure that allows things like offline, off-chain payments, so you can spend your cryptocurrency without being online.
Okay.
We're investing into payment systems, we're investing into on and off ramps to get crypto in and out of these jurisdictions. And basically that takes 3 to 7 years, but once you get through that cycle, you wake up and you have millions of people who are now in your ecosystem and using your ecosystem for products and services like insurance products, credit products, and so forth. And there's also a two-way relationship. So Ethiopia, for example, doesn't have a stock market. Yet there's all these very valuable small to mid-sized enterprises that you'd love to invest in, you'd love to IPO, and your only option is to go to South Africa or the Caribbean and do a reverse merger and then IPO out of a different country. It's terrible for the entrepreneurs there. It's terrible for local jobs. Well, what if you could do an STO and tokenize your company and issue it through? These are the kinds of conversations we get to have, and the government actually understands it quite well. The Prime Minister of Ethiopia is a cryptographer. He's the only one in the world. During the Eritrean War, he broke codes. So when we give him papers, he can read them and understand them, and he really gets the value and power of the technology that we're working on. So these are the kinds of partners that we like to work with, and it's nice because they're not in a situation where they can just wait. There's huge global pressure for carbon reduction, for fair trade, for biodiversity, where basically people are saying, we're no longer going to buy your products and services unless you can prove X, Y, and Z. And the only way to prove X, Y, and Z is to go from a paper-based economy to a digital economy, and we're trying to inject blockchain into that conversation. And if we do it the right way, that means we also bring them into the cryptocurrency space at the same time.
Right. So basically right now you're working on infrastructures and adoption. And you said that you're thinking about digital identities and all the other things that you can use. And long term, as your own development, like improving the number of transactions, you also see yourself as an off-chain, right, transaction provider.
And you have to bring it all off-chain at some point. The point of these ledgers is to be a source of truth. They're for time stamping and auditing, and then once records are there, they stay there, they're immutable. So it's really not a good idea to use this very scarce resource for everything. Instead, what you want to do is use it as a checkpoint for society. So you have your own set of books, but once you've closed them, let's hash them, sign it, and embed it on the chain. So that can be gigabytes of financial data. But at the end of the day, once it's been sealed, you now have a reference point so that if somebody comes by and tries to change the book, cook the book for corruption or fraud, you can now verify that the book has been adulterated. So this is an example of the kinds of systems you can develop that make things just better. It's not really a good idea to take that entire piece of financial data, encrypt it, and then put it into a blockchain structure. That's a misuse of this technology. So, so what we're trying to do is find that balance between private enterprise systems, databases, and standard software as a service systems, and actually open cryptocurrency style systems, and trying to find a way to make them all work together in a service-oriented economy. And you leave the developers and businessmen and policymakers to decide, how much bias they want in each of these systems. And the goal is emergently the systems work together to ultimately make them better, more decentralized, and more fair and free for the consumer.
Right, thank you. So next one, I have a quote again. You gave them many interesting quotes that time. It's about listing on exchanges. You said we would be bloody mad, I like it 14, if we tried to list on 10 or 15 exchanges right in the beginning. Because what's going to happen if we made any mistakes, or if the wallet is not optimized, then all of those wallets are going to break on the exchanges. So Where do you stand on that one?
Well, now we're on 25 exchanges, so we've gone from 1 to 25. The point when I did that interview a year ago was that you need a launch partner. It's a really bad idea to go and launch on 10 exchanges or 15, because any mistake you make is replicated, and you don't have the support capacity to service all of these different infrastructures. Also, there's a huge burden in integrating a cryptocurrency wallet into an exchange, and because there's a massive drift in the professionalism and capabilities of exchanges. When talking Coinbase, these guys are super professional. They have great technology people. It's a really good company. Certain other exchanges, they've actually outsourced their developers to unknown companies in China, where we actually have to translate everything we say into Mandarin to communicate with them, and sometimes they respond and sometimes they don't. And it just blows our mind that people would trust billions of dollars of money with like an outsourced development firm where they're paying their developers $500 or $1,000 a month. So there's a huge variation of professionalism, technical skills, and capabilities. And what we wanted to do when we launched was work with an exchange that we felt had a right mix of everything, and that was Bittrex. And we had a great time with them. We really enjoyed working with them. Very shortly thereafter, we listed on Binance, and now we're on, I believe, more than 25 exchanges. So we've achieved pretty good global liquidity, including fiat pairings with ADA.
And who is your partner? You mentioned a partner.
It was Bittrex was the one that
Bittrex was the partner.
Yeah, that was the one we
beginning.
launched with.
Understood.
We had a great time with him. Richie was good. He was very patient. We learned a lot. We had to redesign our APIs for the wallet.
Yeah.
It was a process.
Well, the last one is about lessons learned. So I think you have already delivered a few.
Well, I can go through more.
You can go through more.
So the original plan was that we knew in the 5-year time horizon that there was a huge research latency to what we wanted to deliver to market. So we didn't want to go and sit down and tell our community, oh, well, you guys go wait for 3 or 4 years, and you're just going to sit on your thumbs, and eventually we'll deliver something in 3 and 4 years, and you're just going to have to not be able to do anything. You're just going to have to wait. That would be a bad deal for them. So we wanted to launch something we could build a community around, something that we could introduce the philosophy, that people could trade, people could enjoy, install, and also because a lot of the things that we're designing require a two-way conversation, like API design, developer experience, system configuration. There's only so much guessing we can do. At the end of the day, you make your best effort, but then you have to see what the market says, and then you learn from that, and it helps you upgrade your software. So we had 2 teams. One really high quality, real awesome team that we brought in, like Duncan Coots and Well-Typed and Tweed, and their job was to build basically the Cardano that would be derived from specifications and science. And then the other team was to kind of bring something to market that we could learn from as an experiment. So it was kind of a hybrid model. And that team was Sarakel. The problem was that Sarakel just didn't have the skill sets necessary to build a real cryptocurrency. But they were sufficiently good that they were really good at convincing us they did. And so what ended up happening is that we got stuck in this loop where the good team had to regress and go and help out the bad team to just get the product to market. And the product that was delivered to market was not up to my quality standards. It had connecting to network issues, memory leaks, it took too much space on disk. It was just not a great product. It wasn't a bad product, I'd say, in that, I mean, looking in the early days of Bitcoin, things can go really bad. But at the end of the day, it was an inferior product than what it should have been. And so what it meant was that it really slowed us down, because our best people, instead of working on the Cardano that everybody wants to have, were working on the legacy Cardano, which was mired in technical debt. It got so bad that I authorized a parallel project called Icarus, where we actually rewrote Cardano in Rust, and we wrote a JavaScript stack for it, and we deployed a light client that now Emergo is using called Yoroi. So now 15% of the network lives in Icarus. So there's been a huge drift of users who just couldn't get Daedalus to work for them into Yoroi. It also damaged the brand of Daedalus. You know, Daedalus as a platform is a great wallet. It's built on top of Electron. It's very secure. It's actually fairly performant now. But people who joined early on had a bad user experience, and as a consequence, they just assumed that the wallet never got upgraded and updated. So they still consistently attack it over Twitter and Reddit, not knowing that things have dramatically changed. It's almost like Windows. You know, Vista wasn't so good, but it would be really unfair to say that Windows 10 is just as bad as Windows Vista. You know, things change, releases change, and some people are still living in the past. So I deeply regret that. I think we could have done a much better job, and we could have been a bit smarter about how we launched that first version of the product to market. And in every aspect, from API design to our release cycle to how we handle quality assurance and the help desk, could have been better handled. I deeply regret working with Michael Parsons for as long as we did. You know, we had a lot of issues with the Cardano Foundation internally, but we tolerated them. And it got so bad that at some point it had to go public, and we had to use public pressure to push Parsons out. He really hurt the project. He refused to work with exchanges, he refused to work with help desks, he refused to market, he refused to do community management, he refused to do regulatory outreach. Basically every line item the foundation was responsible for, he decided not to do, other than pay expensive auditors to look at bad code and then publish public reports saying that IOHK was writing bad code, which ignored our Rust code, our Scala code, and the new Haskell code. You know, it was just a parody of good conduct. It was just disgusting. And for over 2 years we had to deal with him, and I'm glad he's gone, but I deeply regret that it took so long to expunge him from the ecosystem. You know, and
similar situation with Tezos.
Yeah, but the difference is that unlike Tezos, we didn't have to pay a bribe for somebody to leave. He left of his own will.
Oh, that's nice.
And you know, also it didn't substantially slow down or harm the ecosystem. The foundation was never in a position to be in control of IOHK funding or our treasury, so you know, he wasn't able to hold the ecosystem hostage like Johan Gevers was able to hold the situation hostage. So while it was an annoyance, we were able to build a moat around the foundation and replicate all of its services to kind of carry the ecosystem along. It's almost like when one of your kidneys goes bad, your other kidney can carry the weight. Whereas in Tezos, they only had one kidney. So if that went bad, you're dead. And so they basically had to save the kidney to save the project. And it took quite a bit of time. And so Johan had a lot more leverage than Michael ever did.
So he had a better situation in this respect.
Yeah, by design. You know, that's the whole point of the tripartite model, was to say that we have three entities that are all responsible for something. And even if one fails, the other two can carry the weight for that third one that failed. But it slows us down. It hurts public perception. It hurts adoption. You know, and I feel like I let my scientists down and my engineers down, because I have great people that work super hard every single day at IOHK, and they rely upon me as a CEO to make good decisions and make good relationships and keep the alliances strong to allow their hard work to actually be realized and get to market. So as a CEO, you always live in a bit of like misery, because you feel like you're never doing a good enough job. You can always do a better job. You can always do better for the people that work for you, because they're doing a great job for me, and I have a moral obligation and fiduciary obligation as CEO of this company to do my best job. So certainly a lot of regrets, and there's definitely more. Social media and I don't have a good relationship.
You're referring to MetaMask?
Yeah, Twitter and Reddit. You know, the MetaMask incident in particular is endemic of a larger problem. Here's the issue with social media. You can't win. Because I tweet hundreds of things a week, and for the most part no one cares, and some people really like it. But if I say one bad tweet, all the other things I say are not the story. The thing bad I said becomes the story. And then that becomes the standard. You get defined by an incident rather than the general. It would be like saying, oh, this person's a surgeon. Oh, and he screwed up this one operation. Ignore the other 12,000 operations he did that saved tons of lives, and let's just say he's an incompetent surgeon because he screwed one thing up. Humans aren't perfect, but social media demands perfection of people. And
it makes you even more popular. Think about it. We always use negative publicity.
Right, but
all the big brands have.
But in this particular case, I mean, what was just amazing to me was the lack of empathy, especially in the Ethereum community, about what I was actually saying with the MetaMask incident. You know, of course, regret, I never would have said it to begin with, but what was I really saying? I'm the CEO of an actual big company, and we are Ethereum core developers. Mantis actually works with Ethereum as well as it works for Ethereum Classic, and the Ethereum Foundation even wants us to relicense it to become a Hyperledger project for them. So we're core developers in Ethereum. We're a big company. We do massive amounts of science, massive amounts of research. Whether they like it or not, I'm a fairly big guy in the space. So some CEO of a prominent company reaches out to your support your Twitter feed saying, hey, I need to talk to you guys. And instead of saying, well, this might be important, let's create a private channel, they just push me to a support email. Now, you know, if I was running something and my people on Twitter got a Joe Lubin reaching out to them, or Vitalik Buterin, or Dan Larimer, whoever it was, if they're, you know, CEO of a company, I would expect my people to create a private channel to find out what's going on, because this is not a support ticket. I'm not going to use Twitter to support MetaMask as a product. I have engineers. If there's a problem, we can figure out the problem on our end. It's open code.
Right.
This is obviously me trying to get in contact with this company, and I chose Twitter as a medium to do that. So instead of thinking about that and thinking around what the context is, they just assume that I'm this privileged white asshole who just, is the guy at the Starbucks line that yells at you and says, how dare you don't have my mocha frappuccino. They ported this personality onto me. Now, why did I ask MetaMask? Because we were just launching Icarus. Literally, the day that Icarus was launching was the day that MetaMask got delisted from the Chrome Web Store. And I was in a panic mode. I said, we just spent 6 months building this product. We're just about to push this product to the Chrome Web Store. Oh my God, if MetaMask gets delisted, does this mean I now have to pivot a 6-month strategy? Maybe deploy the Firefox or something else? What's going on here? And I didn't have any of the emails from the MetaMask team, and I couldn't send them a DM over Twitter. I've used Twitter to talk to many people in the cryptocurrency space, from Tone Phase all the way to CEOs of other cryptocurrency companies. It's a very common communication medium. It's a very direct communication medium. Occasionally, I even talk to the CEO of Twitter over Twitter, Jack.
It's very public.
Yeah,
that's the same.
And
everybody can read your opinion.
And I'm thinking about MetaMask, and I'm saying, well, it's not a big team. So whoever's running the Twitter is probably sitting right next to the CEO. It's probably sitting.
We felt like when we were analyzing what happened, of course, some people saw that you were a bit, pretentious.
Right.
To say, on the other hand, we thought that, like, from the personal experience, sometimes you put someone to manage social media who has absolutely no idea who is who. So I figured that this person simply had no idea who you were, but I mean, don't think about it too much, because I think it's
but here's the issue. There's still
just,
memes. In fact, I was in Malta, and they had a "Do you know who I am" party, and they had a T-shirt with.
Yeah, we had it not so many 2 days ago as well.
Yeah, there you go. And it just shows you the worst of social media. And also the other thing is that the Ethereum community was extremely toxic about it. You had some of the founders saying, well, Charles never did anything, and he didn't contribute anything to Ethereum. Jeff Wiltshire said that, which is just factually incorrect. But
everybody knows
they said these things, and it just got very petty and obscene and very hurtful. And it just made me view social media fundamentally differently. I said, you know what? This tool is very dangerous. It's very unstable. And frankly, it made me really not like the medium as much. It also made me much more apt to just lose empathy and block people as quickly as possible. I see anybody, even if it's a joke, I don't care. I just block them now or mute them. And this is the unfortunate thing. So I think social media is bad in certain dimensions, especially for CEOs. And Elon Musk has the same issues.
It cuts both ways. On one hand, it gives us exposure that we wouldn't have otherwise, right? It gives you voice.
But it creates a shallow conversation.
Yeah, that's true.
And it also creates parodies of people. People become less about who they actually are and what they're actually doing, and they just become more about what they can accomplish in 140 characters. And if that's the game we're playing, we're never actually going to accomplish anything. You can't have an argument. In fact, even Vitalik fell into this loop. What blew me away was when Vitalik, after we published Ouroboros Genesis, went to Twitter and Reddit to have a debate with us about the scientific merits of Ouroboros Genesis. And this was after we ran into him at Financial Crypto in Malta and the Shanghai Bitcoin Winter School, where our scientists were there, I was there, we were on panels together. At any time he could have said, I read your paper, I don't understand this, or I have a concern here, and we could have had a very deep, detailed academic conversation. Instead, he chose to use the least effective, highest noise to signal ratio channels, Twitter and Reddit, to have a conversation which had nothing to do with merit. It was more just basically who can win in the court of public opinion. The fact that scientific discourse is now being reduced down to this he said, she said, social media, I think bodes very poorly on the health of our space and the conduct of some of the people in our space. So a regret of mine is that I got so engaged in social media and that it's had such an impact on me emotionally. Another thing is that you get so criticized, and people say grow a thicker skin. But there's numerous psychological studies that show that when you're in a position you get constant criticism, whether you cognitively know the criticism is bupkis or not, it actually does have negative emotional, mental, and physical effects on your health. You just start getting sharper with people. You stop giving people the benefit of the doubt. You start thinking that a lot of people don't like you, or that certain communities are just scum. In other cases, it turns people to say things that are just insane. Like when Kyle Samani of Multicoin Capital said that Cardano is working with the Yakuza and we defrauded Japanese investors. That's slander. He's a real person. He runs a real fund. There is no excuse for slander. Yet he said this publicly on Twitter. And I had to go after him on Twitter until he issued a retraction. You know, so why has our discourse come here? Because I'm going to run into him at conferences. I'm going to run into his partner Vinny at conferences all the time. Probably one of their guys that are here.
I didn't see them.
You know, or they're going to be at Consensus or some other event. And so every single time for the next 10 years that I see them, his opinion is I'm a criminal. And he told the whole world that. He didn't say it at a cocktail party behind my back. He told the whole world I'm a criminal. Social media has converted us into a culture that does this.
Getting attention.
Yeah, and is it really worth it just so you can get some likes and clicks from people who don't really care and aren't with you? I mean, if they're willing
we have here with us some Twitter personalities you probably know.
Yeah.
Yeah, people who grew, you know, they don't have anything going on besides Twitter, right? Just on their opinions. So it's amazing, right?
Yeah, I had dinner with one last night.
I'm sure it's Peter Marconi.
No,
not someone else?
I can't say that.
Okay. All right, Charles, thank you so much.